You haven't guessed it already, we are outdoors, so I do apologize for any sort of noise, ambient noise and stuff like that. Just a fact, when you're outside you're gonna hear noise, right? Onion and garlic. We've got about 10 cloves of garlic in there and a medium onion that I just gave a rough dice to. I'll show you what we're cooking on. We're cooking on charcoal right now. We're going old school. We're doing this one for the ancestors. So we're using the coal pot. The thing about cooking with the coal pot is that it's very tricky. It's not like there's no knob for you to control the heat. So yeah, you got to be smart about it. And yes, we have done this soup before indoors, but I much prefer the outdoor method of cooking it because the charcoal I'm using is going to hit it with a that little kiss of smoke is going to make this soup even better than the original, which I shared with you all quite a while back. It is pretty much a high heat, and this is my grandmother's recipe for dal and dumpling soup, except I like using salted pigtail. And here I have 2.5 pounds of salted pigtail, which I got the butcher to cut up for me. Then I boiled it in water for about 50 minutes, 50 minutes, to help tenderize it and to remove most of the salt. In goes the salted pigtail in there. I think my camera was not recording what I added in here so far. It's the onion and the garlic to start off with, and I had about 1.5 tablespoons of olive oil in the pot. Then I added the salted pigtail, which I said was cooked in boiling water for about 1 hour, about 55 minutes to 1 hour. I added it in there. I allowed some of the fat to render out to give us a deep, rich flavor. And the reason for boiling the salted pigtail is to remove some of the salt and to help tenderize it a bit. After which I went in with 2 cups of yellow split peas, which we call dal. So that's the dal element of the soup. After I stirred that around, I added 2 cups of coconut milk, and that is where we are right now. This is going to take about at least 1.5 hours to get to the sort of consistency and texture that I am looking for. You can see we've got a vigorous bubble going on there, so in goes water. We're going to bring that up to a boil, and I'm going to have it going, wow. I'm cooking outdoors. I'm cooking on a charcoal fire, so controlling the heat isn't the easiest thing. So I'm going to have this on a rapid boil as the charcoal would allow me to. But before we go further, I've got some Caribbean green seasoning. That's 2 tablespoons of Caribbean green seasoning, which is going to make its way in there. And that, if you're new to Caribbean cooking, Caribbean green seasoning is a sort of blend or a puree of all the herbs we like using, along with garlic and seasoning peppers and all of that. It's kept, my base is olive oil, and I keep it in the fridge. Speaking about peppers, I've got a Scotch bonnet pepper. Boom, we're going to float that in there. The thing about the Scotch bonnet pepper, or if you decide to use habanero or whatever pepper you decide to use, float it. The oils on the skin on the outside will flavor the dish. Remove it. Or, as in my case, I will break it. I will bust it open. Release the beast. That Caribbean sunshine is going to scream throughout this dish because I like it spicy. Spicy is not your thing? Don't fret. I already told you. Don't break it. Fish it out later. You got to bring this up to a boil now, yeah? On that high heat, it will only take about 4 minutes for it to come up to that boil there. What I'm going to do is put the lid on there because I'm cooking outside. And I don't want any fly kind of trying to commit suicide in my food here. So I ain't trying to make fun of suicide. Let me get that clear because I ain't trying to get no hate. What I'm going to do is put the lid on slightly ajar, so there is about 2 centimeters there. As it cooks down, I'm going to keep adding water to it just to maintain that level of water. So this is the setup here, and I don't know if you guys can see down inside there, the red that you're seeing, that is the charcoal, and this is called a coal pot. And the entrance that you're seeing here, that is where the ash would fall and the oxygen would go up, feed into the fire. It's got a real vigorous boil going there. The lighting isn't the greatest out here, but the charcoal pot, the coal pot, is sitting on my wood burning stove that I had custom designed for me. And the reason for that is because I need something that's coal pot is going to get very hot. So I needed something that's metal to rest it on to have the soup going. It's been going for 1 hour. So you notice the split peas or dal is starting to break down, and that is exactly what we want. That's going to break down completely and become nice and creamy and thicken up this soup. Now when my grandmother made this soup, and I would have told you this, I would have mentioned this in the original video that we did indoors. Hers was basically coconut milk, probably salted cod the odd time, but she kept it dal, dumpling, broth, nothing else. In my case here, what I'm going to do, I've got some potato and carrots. I'll show you the potato. Nice big pieces. But this is still going to continue cooking for a bit. So 6 medium-sized potato and 2 medium-sized carrots that's just peeled and chopped up and into the pot here. I'm going to bring that back up to a boil. What I forgot to mention is that I did add more water already to this, because as you saw, it had it on a rigorous boil. Because I'm cooking with charcoal, I cannot control the heat as much. Halfway through cooking now, and I just wanted to show you all something. My charcoal is starting to go down, so I just refilled it, and that is where we're at now. I'm just going to reach over, put back the sort of grill top on it. Now, one thing I forgot to mention when I started, it is a charcoal fire, whether you're using charcoal or wood or whatever. If you used any sort of fire starter, like any sort of kerosene or anything, to start your fire, please burn that off first before starting to cook. It will make its way into your food and it won't taste good. So now that we have new charcoal on there, just gonna jump down, put the pot back on, bring that up to a boil, and things continuing nicely. It's been half an hour since I added the potatoes and carrots to the soup. Remember, I mentioned earlier, it's not traditional to the recipe that my grandmother would have made, but to give it a bit of more body and everything else, that's why I add a potato. The other thing I don't know if I mentioned is that I cut up the potato relatively big so it won't break down too much. You can see the texture. It's become nice and creamy now. All of that yellow split peas has disintegrated and become a nice harmonious mix with the coconut milk and water. I've added water 2 times there. What I have here now is flour dumplings. However you like to shape your dumplings, that's completely fine. And what it is, it's 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of brown sugar. Yes, sugar. I made a dough, a wet soft dough out of it, and then I rolled it out like a pizza using a pizza cutter, and then I cut it into these little flour dumplings. If you want spinners, if you want cow tongue, if you want a video specifically on making dumplings as we would in the Caribbean, drop a comment down below and I'll try my best to get to it in the coming weeks. Yeah, so all I'm doing is adding, and it's just dusted in flour so they don't stick together, and that's going to help thicken up the soup even further. So I may add some more water at some point here. Now don't taste it for salt yet. Give it about 5 to 10 minutes after adding the flour dumplings, because remember that will play a part in the salt content in the soup. Then taste it and then adjust the salt. If you're old school, like my grandmother would have done, she would have put some golden ray butter at the end here. I am not a fan of adding such things, so very rare you'll see me using any sort of those things, you know, like the processed butters, the different types, and I don't want to call names because next thing you know I get in heat about it. Aggie. I don't add those things to when I'm cooking. It's all natural and thing, you know what I mean? I'm trying to keep it as best as I can to the way my ancestors would have done soup. And the video is taking a bit longer, but I really, you know, when I drop a recipe, I like to explain things. So the dumplings will only take about 5 to 10 minutes, but I will allow this to go for 15 minutes. And you can see how thick it's already starting to go since we added the flour dumplings. I will add a bit more water because I like my dumplings, and to be honest with you, I like this soup the day after, simply because those flour dumplings becomes pillowy soft, and I'm talking melt in your mouth soft the next day, partner. But to eat this soup, what I would recommend, some mango or apple cuchilla. You gotta head over to caribbeanpot.com. That condiment, that cuchilla, with this soup, listen, you're falling asleep after. I ain't gonna say ethnic fatigue or anything like that because people just get offended by it. But facts is facts. Sup, soldiers? Listen, if you enjoy this recipe, I'd really appreciate it if you hit subscribe and click that bell notification thing. If you've made the recipe, take a picture and send it to me. Email address down here. I mean, trying to tell people the email address, them butts will take the address and do all kind of thing with it. And tag me on Instagram at Caribbean Pod. I really appreciate you guys, and thanks for being in my kitchen with me today. Irie. I do appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. It's been long, yeah, I must admit, but like I said earlier, I love explaining all the steps that I went through. It's been 10 minutes now. The dumplings are nice and big. I'm just gonna I can't shut the stove off. It's a cold pot. I'll remove it off the heat. It will thicken up considerably after. Chris here, CaribbeanPod.com. Always a pleasure having you all in the kitchen with me. We were outside. I apologize for all the sounds and everything else that you heard. My grandma's, an adaptation of my grandma's Dhal and dumpling soup. Notice how much dumpling in there. Oh, don't forget, at this point is where you would taste it for salt and adjust it. I did break the Scotch bonnet pepper. It's disintegrated now in there. But what I would say is before you added the flour dumplings, that's when I would recommend taking that pepper out, tossing it out, if heat is not your thing. What's up, soldiers? Don't forget to click subscribe. If you've already clicked subscribe, hit that bell notification thing. I don't want to all you missing out on the new videos, man. Come on, click. Just allow me one more minute of your time. Is it even an outdoor soup on a coal pot if you don't have that leakage, that sort of spillage, that sort of G's and H's I have to scrub this pot with after?